We'll check ships as soon as we get into the match here. Again, 5 kills is going to get the win. We're at the rubber match now. It's 1-1 for this first set of 3. Rubber match, always the best game, it seems. It's now matched up. We're going to see what happens. Tell us about this map, Sammy.
Well, it's actually different than it was a week ago. In the middle, see, originally this basic map came out as called Labyrinth, which is a 2v2 capture point. It looked basically what it looked like now. They then made a deathmatch version, but the thing was, it was different because in the middle, instead of this globe here, it was just some really tall buildings. They decided this last patch to go ahead and revert it back so that basically this map is this. I'm fairly sure it's identical to the. Actually, no, it's not completely identical, but it's pretty much the same as the 2v2 King of the Hill match. And so it's the dynamic of the map has changed quite a bit because there's now this big opening right in the middle of the map.
We do have a ship change. The Kamikaze Punk is still here, but the Pyramidion is in. It's just called Pyramidion. It's the stock name. They have reset it up. A bit of a traditional meta here going on. We have a Gat mortar in the front and 2 carronades on the sides.
Ooh, love me a double carronade.
Yeah, can you tell us more about this meta? It's one of the older metas from what I know. Tell us more about it.
Well, I mean, basically in this game you have to do 2 things to kill a ship. You have to break their armor, and you have to destroy their permahull. And they have to go in that order. You can't destroy the armor. I mean, you can't destroy the permahull before you destroy the armor. And so what those 2 guns are basically the specialized short-range specialist of each of those. The Gatling is your short-range specialized armor destruction, and your mortar is your short-range specialized permahull destruction. And so it's really just a simple, hey, look, these 2 guns work well in tandem together. You can time your shots, so you can have the Gatling break the armor, you wait for that, and then you have the mortar start firing. And it's just an effective way to scoop up very quick kills.
Now, one thing that I love to do as someone who guns often is I love to just hop on that Gatling and rip armor to shreds. It is so incredibly effective at chewing through that armor very quickly.
And we're seeing, Ram Jam's up there. He's rocking that greased ammunition, which he's basically able to one-clip an armor if he's accurate enough.
Absolutely.
We're also seeing a switch over on the duck side. The Grinchmas is no longer a spire.
Oh, it's a Pyramidion.
Yep, a Metamidion front. That Gat mortar once again, and a carousel left, and they're making sure to still have a flare on their backside.
Flares I love that they're used. I feel like they can be out of place at times.
Jace is flying my old junker. Jace!
That's the exact same setup?
How I used to fly it with 2 carronades on the right-hand side and an Artemis on the front. And the left side is the Gat mortar. Oh! Retro,
is this a little nostalgia moment for you? Do you need a moment?
I might.
Oh dear.
He's flying my build. I flew that with him. It's still very effective. I mean, the main difference between what I have now is one of those carronades right now for me is a carousel. But I mean, 2 carronades and an Artemis on this match, the enemy's not going to have a balloon. They're not going to have engines. They're going to be flying into buildings all day. And it's going to be fantastic because that is a fantastic junker build. I'm so happy to see it.
That's a very good point, too. These buildings can be very, very tight to get around. You sometimes have to hug walls just to get the right position you need. And all of a sudden, oh crap, balloon is down. I am plummeting into spires that are going to skewer my ship apart. You have a lot of trouble going on there.
Right. And, I mean, sometimes you just have to hit the buildings. It's the only way you can move. If you have enemies taking out your engines. We were playing the Flying Dutchman for the Muse Invitational.
Yeah.
And they brought a fantastic build. They had a bunch of Artemises. And I remember trying to escape, and I knew I couldn't turn one way as I was trying to round a corner. I knew the only way I could ever turn was if I basically just threw my boat into a wall to basically like flip me around. And actually was able to escape. But I remember the casters thought I'd made a mistake. I was like, no, I was just doing something just so stupid it looked like a mistake.
This is so stupid it just might work.
It was definitely one of those moments, and I have those way, way, way too often.
You take it with pride. Kamikaze Punk has a little bit of fire focusing on it. Shots going out between those Hades, or at least the Hades on the Kamikaze Punk. They had lost 2 guns. They're back up to only 1 gun disabled. Mary Tattoo is coming in close to the Pyramidion. Pyramidion is losing its balloon very quickly.
We're seeing those double carronades at work at the same time as the armor's getting stripped by a Gatling.
Ooh, Gatling excessively effective, and I bet those carronades had a lot to do with it as well.
Well, it made sure that the engineers were split on the Pyramidion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you have the balloon and armor down, it's a hard call.
Mm-hmm. Elf of the Mary Tattoo is losing a lot of components to fire. The engineers on that ship need to get that under control so they can keep effective firepower on the Kamikaze Punk. Kamikaze Punk is losing its outer armor. Hull armor is gone. The permanent hull is exposed. They are trying to get out of here as fast as they can, but oh my god, they might actually make it.
Well, I mean, we are seeing one of the issues with the Junker is it can't control its range of engagement too terribly well, especially that carronade one. However, the Grinchmas is able to get on its tail. The Kamikaze Punk, it looks like, doesn't have the turn engines to move away, and down he eventually goes. But very close to an escape there.
Bump the nose cone against that building. Tough situation there for that red ship, but it did work out well for the blue team in the end. That charge, unfortunately, ineffective from Sacrilege, and the blue team, the Ducks, comes out 2-0.
Now, before we had to go to that, you were saying that, you were asking if the carronades had a large effect of that quick kill.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely did, because remember how earlier we were talking about how if the balloon is down, every balloon hit is an armor hit. And so when you're in those close range brawls, that basically it makes the mortar an insanely accurate weapon.
Mm-hmm.
And that is already an insanely powerful weapon.
Yeah.
And so with the double carronades and a Gatling and a mortar, you're basically attacking everything that the engineers hold dear to their lives.
Even when that balloon is down to, how much damage is that carronade doing to the hull as it's still firing?
It's not as good as a Gatling, but it's still doing a good deal. Also, carronades are relatively effective short-range disabling weapons.
Mm-hmm.
When I ran this, I'd actually have my top deck aim for the enemy balloon, but the bottom deck would actually aim for the enemy engines.
Elf of the Mary Tattoo is charging out into both ranges for the Kamikaze Punk and Pyramidion. It's taking a lot of fire, but it's also dishing it back out very quickly. Pyramidion has lost most of their outer hull, and the Kamikaze Punk is losing some of it as well.
But they're not focusing fire. Look at that. We have 2 separate engagements.
Yeah.
was firing on the Kamikaze. Duck firing on the Grinchmas, and it looks like they might pay for that. Actually, no. Both teams are kind of splitting right now. We're seeing 2 one-on-ones, basically.
Elf of the Mary Tattoo is looking like they're trying to refocus their firepower on the Pyramidion, but they're also having a lot of trouble just keeping the ship in the air. Focus fire right now on the Pyramidion. It goes down. That combined chain gun firepower is exactly what the doctor called for. Kamikaze Punk is now in a 2-on-1 scenario where they are in a 3-0 on the team points for this match.
I'm not entirely sure why Kamikaze Punk is not in full reverse and ready to turn. There he goes finally, but love of God, he needs to get out of there. He's really lucky that blue team did not charge hard right there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. If the Ducks had charged right into the engagement there, would they be able to take out the Kamikaze Punk easily?
Pretty easily. A 2-on-1 when there's gap mortars involved is going to end very quickly on close range maps like this. And it probably would have timed correctly enough so that right as they finished that, the Pyramidion called Pyramidion would have arrived.
Ooh, incredibly accurate firepower coming from the Kamikaze Punk's Hades.
Who's their Hades?
I don't know.
The dude from the hood.
The dude abides. That's all I have to say about that. Kamikaze Punk is taking a lot of firepower, though, from the Mary Tattoo and the Grinchmas. Ooh, they rammed themselves to death against the Grinchmas.
Oh, God. Ramming is 9 out of 10 times when you want to ram, don't do it. Just don't.
That's hard to say, too, because you're used to seeing the Pyramidion get those bumps in when it absolutely needs. Pyramidion is going down. That's going to finish the map out. Going back to what we were talking about, though, bumps, those rams. Effective strategy still or not so much?
Well, it's... The way to think about it is only use rams not as a damage-dealing device, but think of it more as simply if you're trying to move someone. That's the main time you want to be ramming someone. Because I can promise you, no ram is going to be more powerful than your Gat Mortar being in arc. And when you ram somebody, 9 out of 10 times you're going to lose that arc unless you're doing very intelligent moonshining or something like that. And it's still very easy to lose it. So, no, you generally don't want to ram. It can be effective strategy for some things, ramming Junker Balloons, for example, because a Junker Balloon will go down so quickly. Or if you have a really light ship, you're trying to move out of the way. That's when you want to ram. But you don't want to have your strategy be charge and ram. Ram is not a damage technique. It is a moving technique.